Welcome everyone to the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor, and it's been a long time since I've done anything wrestling related on this show. Anyone who's been following the show from the beginning knows that pro wrestling has been an interest of mine, and I've done pay-per-view reviews before. I haven't really done it too much in recent years, just because there is so much wrestling out there now. I think the last time I did a wrestling show was before AEW was even a thing. So that gives you a little bit of context, and there's so much wrestling out there. But me and my two regulars, you guys know them, Cory and Brian. They're both here. We figured we'd go back and just kind of take a trip down memory lane a little bit, sort of check out a classic pay-per-view event. Something, we're all in kind of the same age group, so we sort of grew up on 80s and 90s WWF at the time. It's WWE, and we figured this would be interesting because even if you're not a fan of current wrestling, or, chances are a lot of people we know, especially people in our age group, they liked it back when they were kids, so they might remember it from that time period. So they might kind of dig that a little bit more than whatever's going on now. Obviously, we kind of know what's happening currently, more or less, with WWE, so we might compare it here and there. But this will be great, especially if you grew up, knowing about this time period in wrestling. I think this will be a lot of fun. So we appreciate you guys joining with us. First, we've got Cory W, a.k.a. C-Dub from Chronocord. What's up, brother?
How's it going, everybody?
And, of course, the Bobby Heenan to my Gorilla Monsoon, former FCW referee, comedian, musician, philanthropist, ambassador, and Brian Connolly. What's up?
Hey, what's up?
All right. So we decided to go back to the Thanksgiving Classic of WWE, Survivor Series of 1990. When I was talking about what event we wanted to do, what was it about this pay-per-view in particular that made you think, let's go and do this?
Well, for me, it's we're in the month of November right now as we sit here and record. And the month of November means a couple of things. It means stuffing yourself into a food coma sometime around the Thanksgiving holiday. And it means, back in the day, it means Survivor Series.
Yes.
And this one really stood out. 1990, I was a wee kid, about 5 years old, so this is right in my wheelhouse, and I rented this pay-per-view many times back in the day and would watch it, the old Coliseum video, so this is a good one. This is prime Hulkamania years.
Of course. Brian, same question for you?
So the year 1990 would have been the first year I actually started ordering the pay-per-views, and I realized this was the fourth one that I ever ordered.
Really?
And at the time, let's see, I was 10 years old in 1990, and I lived near where this took place in Hartford. I lived in a close-by city called New Milford, Connecticut, and I really wanted to go. Like, oh my God, this was an awesome event. And, I would say the 30-year anniversary of The Undertaker debuting is a pretty big milestone.
Yes, of course. As I was going to mention this, but yeah, as we record this is November 14th, 2020. Just around the corner is the 30th anniversary of The Undertaker's debut, which was at this very event that we're talking about. So it's pretty wild. I know they're making a big deal out of it right now on WWE, so they're going to have some sort of appearance, some sort of final farewell appearance that he's doing. So I'm not sure what that will entail. But it's kind of it's definitely a coincidence that we picked this event of all things to do this little retro review of. So yeah, the original air date was November 22nd, 1990. It was Thanksgiving Day, which they don't really do anymore. Typically, they always do pay-per-view events, at least WWE does, on Sunday nights. Not sure why they made the change, I guess, with the pay-per-view model. I mean, you would think now with the WWE Network, they're not really as beholden to those sorts of things, but who knows?
I loved the fact that it was on Thanksgiving. It gave me something to look forward to after eating as a kid. Like, it was a cool thing. And I think they stopped doing it in 92. Then it became on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
which was still okay. And then 95, I believe it became a Sunday night thing, which is just like, I don't know. It lost its a lot of its luster at that moment. It needs to be on Thanksgiving, and I can't explain why.
It's just kind of cool to have something. Maybe they just didn't want to compete with football games and
Sure.
parades and stuff.
True.
Maybe it was just tough to get the type of ratings they wanted.
Plus, I mean, the aspect of the wrestlers want to being home with their families on Thanksgiving, I suppose.
That too.
That's a factor.
For sure. I know. Getting back before we get it started, for me, I was around 6 years old when this show came out. I always try to remember when exactly I first was made aware of what wrestling was. I think it might have been this year or this particular event, because I remember seeing like magazines at like the local supermarket and just being curious about it. And I know my cousin Alicia was a big fan of it at the time, so she kind of got me and my sister into it. But it's like I don't really remember when I first watched wrestling. It was just something that was just sort of always there. But I think I might be able to trace it back to around this.
Really?
Yeah, I think Survivor Series was the first like pay-per-view event that I had heard of. It was either that or the Royal Rumble, because I remember all the artwork that would come out. So it might have been around this time. But as you mentioned, Brian, it was at the Hartford Civic Center in Hartford, Connecticut.
Yes, sir.
So, however, we're going to do, this isn't necessarily a watch along because we're not doing this in real time, but we went back and we watched this show and took notes on it and just kind of gave our thoughts. So we're just going to go and do this, and however you're watching it, whether you have one of those old Coliseum videotapes that still works, which would be amazing, whether it's on DVD. I think there was a DVD release of it many years ago, and maybe in a box set, but I know. Or if you have the WWE Network, it's on there to stream. So let's get into it. So basically we open with just not really much of a video package. I guess at the time they didn't really have the budget or production level, but it's just sort of a general open with Vince McMahon doing the voiceover, just announcing the card in that classic over the top McMahonian growl that that he's been known for.
I love intros to the Royal Rumble and the Survivor Series for the reason of him just screaming the names of wrestlers.
He is amped up to 11 in this, and that's the crazy thing about Vince, is that he has like basically two speeds, especially at this point, and it almost sounds like someone doing an impression of Vince McMahon.
For sure.
But it's always either like very serious, all right, Mr. All right, Mr. Ventura, clearly he did a suplex. What a maneuver.
Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, like there's no in between. It's either that, it's either Bruce Banner or the Hulk that he turns into. It's crazy, but it's completely over the top. There is no line that is not growled from this man. But
And for me, there's only a couple things that I need with my classic pay-per-view intros, and it's stills of pro wrestlers from their interviews, only their heads, and upper bodies,
just headshots,
just from the green screens,
yeah,
and then like a simple background with Vince McMahon just screaming their name and what the hell they're doing that night, and I'm sold. Like, whatever, let's go.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it continues on through the commentary, like and we're going to get to that, but like, I also noticed not one singles match on this show. They were very consistent that they wanted them to all be basically traditional elimination matches, which is pretty interesting. Like, they don't really do that much anymore.
So I actually noticed that it was the pacing. There was 5 20-minute matches, plus a grand finale, plus they had pose downs, promos, entrances, backstage interviews, and the hatching of the giant egg. Of course.
True. Yeah, even then they ran a pretty tight ship as far as the timing goes.
All under 3 hours. Yeah, 2.5 hours. Like it was really good pacing for matches that don't mean anything. There's no stakes.
Yeah, I mean, the grand finale match was an interesting concept, and we can get into this later, but like I don't know how often they did that.
Something else I noticed was I liked how every team had 2 wrestlers and 2 and tag teams.
Yes.
I didn't even notice that.
Match had a use of every tag, which is something they could make great use out of now. Every match could have a tag team in it, and they all were involved in some kind of feud from like carrying on from SummerSlam or WrestleMania, and I don't know, I just like the way that was booked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as you guys alluded to, this was the only event in Survivor Series history with the grand finale format, which is basically just where the survivors of the elimination tag team matches go on to a match at the end to determine the survivors of Survivor Series. And
there could have been some stakes to that, I think.
There really wasn't any kind of prize. It was just like...
Not that we were aware of. I know that, like, Gorilla Monsoon, traditionally he would, like, at least make a reference to a winner's purse, which is... It's one of those things that should be obvious, but, like, I feel like, you know, just a little reminder of that. If you win, you get paid more. I mean, it makes sense on paper, because that's how it works in the boxing world and the MMA, but almost a little reminder of that every now and then wouldn't be too bad. Just, you know...
You know, maybe Gorilla Monsoon should have pulled a page out of John Madden's playbook and given a giant turkey leg to the winners of Survivor Series.
Interesting.
Or they could have just put the gobbledygook into that idea right on the spot.
Of course. So speaking of Gorilla Monsoon, it's Monsoon and Roddy Piper on commentary. This was this was an interesting period where you know, Roddy had come back to the company. He was a babyface, which I think for the first time really in his career. So they would occasionally do this. They would stick guys on commentary, but you know, not have them wrestle. I don't know if he was out with an injury at this time or what the reasoning behind that was.
He wrestled sporadically, at certain events, Royal Rumbles, WrestleManias. His match with Bret Hart, WrestleMania 8, was fantastic.
Yeah.
I like this Piper with the long hair, this era of Piper, man. I love it.
Because you know, you always wonder if, like, what was Vince trying to, like, phase Roddy out of the ring at this point? Because he tried to do that with Savage a couple years later.
Yeah. Randy the next year he retired at WrestleMania 7 and then did commentary. I was okay with any of them, man. You know, I liked Gorilla with anybody.
Yeah, Gorilla was great, and I mean, just sort of similar to the intro, they're both screaming their heads up. Now, I don't know if the crowd noise was sweetened up a little bit. I don't know, because they still had hot crowds at the time, but
that's a small arena too, you know, so it could be that loud.
Yeah, maybe that was just sort of the directive, like, okay, we want to keep the energy up, so really sound like you're screaming and selling it, you know, which you know was something I noticed right off the bat. Like I don't feel like they quite get as loud as they do now, maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, to me, I feel like that was just a symptom of the times, man. Everything was so over the top during this period. Everybody looked like a comic book character or a cartoon character.
For sure.
And this is like the sweet spot of pro wrestling for me.
It really was. And so they already began with like a tease of the giant egg reveal. I don't know how long they had been building this up for.
It's a few weeks.
Far too long.
Yeah, like
a few weeks.
It seems like, you know, the payoff obviously was not. It was what it was. I mean, we're going to get into that segment later, but it was just a bizarre thing to tease, and they made it seem like much more dramatic than it ended up being. You know, and I don't know. I feel like there was a lot. They could have done that a lot differently, and it would have come off a lot better. But
dude, imagine being in the live audience for that, especially as a kid. You could see kids that were like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
we'll get to that.
Oh yeah, and their reaction was perfect. But there was a nice reference to the Armed Forces Network at the time, USO. They were broadcasting it to the troops, and this was really the beginning of the first Persian Gulf War. So they made reference to that a lot in this one. Hot Rod came right out of the gate with the Saddam Hussein reference, which was great. And it's like, he said, "Saddam, I'm going to make you pay through the nose." And I'm like, was that a cocaine reference? Was Saddam known for being like a big cokehead? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. This was definitely right around that time when, like you said, the Gulf War was starting, and man, like I remember yellow ribbons everywhere. Everybody had the yellow ribbons on the trees and all over the place for the troops to come home.
Yeah, I had kind of
it was a very unique patriotic period in the United States.
for sure. I had forgotten about that reference, the yellow ribbon thing. I don't really remember that being a thing. I mean, you and I, Corey, we were both pretty young. Brian, I know you got a few years on us, but it's yeah, I don't really remember that being a thing. But that made sense, with what Hacksaw ended up bringing out.
So yeah, two months after this was the Super Bowl where Whitney sang the Star Spangled Banner in Tampa, and then the Royal Rumble, which really was there's a lot of references on that to
for sure.
War.
Well, I remember Whitney's Star Spangled Banner ended up getting like released as a single because it was amazing.
Now that I think about Sergeant Slaughter winning the title when he did in January '91, that's like, it's crazy that they did that.
That was a wild angle, and we'll definitely get into that. So I mean, as with all events at this time, you had not Howard Finkel. He was just billed as the Fink, which is a weird choice, in the graphic. It wasn't Howard Finkel that they brought, so it was the Fink, which I thought which is like, we all call him that, but I mean, I guess then again we have a guy named The Miz, so what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
I like that WrestleMania 9 when he was Finkus Maximus.
Yes.
That's about the only thing from WrestleMania 9 that I enjoy.
Right.
And Bobby Heenan on the camel backwards.
Riding backwards. Perfect. Speaking of perfect, we have match number 1. How's that for a segue? The perfect team, which consisted of Mr. Perfect and all 3 members of Demolition, Axe, Crush, and Smash. Rest in peace, Bryan Adams. They had Bobby Heenan and Mr. Fuji in their corner versus the Warriors, which was the ultimate.
There's a lot of rest in pieces.
Well, that's unfortunately that's true. We just lost Road Warrior Animal a few months ago, but the Warriors, which is the Ultimate Warrior, the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, and the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal,
who are all no longer with us. The entire Ultimate Warrior team.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild, man. But to think about
that kind of thing stands out to me immediately. Is right off the bat: Piper, Gorilla, Fink, Fuji, Crush, Heenan, Perfect, LOD, Tornado, Warrior, Mean Gene, all gone.
Well, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, look, time goes on. None of us are going to make it out of this life alive. But
only Axe and Smash from this match.
I mean, but like some of these guys, when you look at the ages they could be now, it's like, man, you guys should still be here. But it is what it is.
Yeah. But Axe's last WWF match, I believe.
Really?
It is Axe's last match. Yes, he had the shellfish illness.
Axe was Bill Eadie, right?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Also known as Masked Superstar.
Right. Was he also Crusher Khrushchev, or was that Barry Darsow?
That was Barry Darsow.
Okay.
AKA Demolition Smash.
I gotta say, man, like, looking at the way Demolition looked back then, like, they still look cool. Like, if you took them from there and put them on TV today, that look would still be badass, I think.
That theme song to me is number 1.
Yeah.
It's even better to me than Warriors theme. I love Demolition's theme.
Yeah.
A couple of stupid trivial tidbits. So
bring it.
In the intro for this, in the intro graphics, you see Demolition with these like lucha style masks on, but they're all like black.
Yeah.
They look like gimp masks, but
oh yeah.
Definite S&M vibes, but it's still looks cool.
The action figures had those masks in '91.
Yes, they had the helmet style ones, but for like a week on TV before this event, and in those intro pictures for this event, Demolition debuted like actual masks that they would wear in the ring while they wrestled, with the idea of you don't know who it is. Then Axe got the shellfish illness that caused him to have heart troubles while he was in Japan.
He was pretty old by that point, wasn't he? Like, he was already...
Yeah, he had been wrestling since I want to say early 70s. So.
Yeah, so he had been around for a while, and,
Yeah. But that's one little funny tidbit.
And obviously on paper it's a dream match too, because Demolition was sort of created to be the WWE's answer to the Road Warriors. And then now, when Legion of Doom came into the company, then it's like you had that built-in feud right there.
Absolutely. And, it's funny that the team, the Warriors, you have the Ultimate Warrior, who was the WWF champion.
Mm-hmm.
Kerry Von Erich, the Texas Tornado, who was known as the modern-day Warrior in world-class championship wrestling.
There you go.
He has the Intercontinental Championship here. And then you got the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. So the team of the Warriors was a very good name here.
Right.
Going into this, as I said, the Texas Tornado was the IC champ. He had captured that title fairly recently in August.
Yeah.
And was still feuding with Mr. Perfect. And then you had the Ultimate Warrior and the LOD, who on house shows, and I think they had a Saturday night's main event match too.
Sure.
Those guys were taking each other on in 6-man tag team matches.
Yeah.
I believe was Mr. Perfect not the Intercontinental Champion by the time of this event?
Mr. Perfect lost the title to Texas Tornado.
Gotcha. Man, how great did Kerry look back then, man? He was just a good-looking dude. He looked like a star.
And he was missing a foot.
I know.
No clue.
I know. That's amazing. Like, he was able to work the way he did, and he was missing a foot at the time. That blew my mind when I found that out.
Actually, you know what else is crazy about this match is all three, because there's only 3 championships, were in this first match.
Yeah. Yeah, Warrior was the champion
not that any
at the
were
time.
on the line, but all 3 champions were included in this match. So
I like how Warrior sort of had the white championship belt. He always had like different color belts, which I thought.
Yeah, he had a yellow one.
Yeah, which I always thought was a really interesting choice. So the Warriors cut a group promo before the entrance, before they made their entrance with Mean Gene, and just naturally all of them are just screaming their lungs out at the top of their lungs.
This is pro wrestling to me, dude. You face paint.
No, they're
screaming
amped
into
up.
a microphone. You got a guy in a tuxedo interviewing you for some reason.
Yeah, like everything's very formal. The crazier they got, the more formal Gene was. It was perfect.
This is awesome.
I mean, dude, like at one point, the Ultimate Warrior in this interview is like,
yeah,
he's just
it's
like,
it's indecipherable.
Yeah,
like, you have no idea what he's talking about, but as a kid, you just buy into it. Like, yeah, man.
Yep. Ate it up, dude. Bring it.
I like how Animal gives a shout out to the Little Warriors, the Little Tornadoes, and the Little Doomers. I didn't know that was a thing.
Little Doomers. What the heck is that?
I think he was trying to make that a thing. I don't know if that was, but I mean, kids loved the Legion of Doom back then. I did. I thought they were cool.
Definitely. Yeah. I still have the T-shirt that I got when I was 11, and I wear it regularly. The Legion, that red LOD shirt, man. I love that shirt.
That's a hell of a look that Hawk had back in the day with the reverse mohawk. Like,
yeah.
I mean, of course, no one was going to tell him that it looked ridiculous because, I mean, it's Hawk, but it's such a fine line between looking like a badass and looking just like an 80s gym teacher, with that mustache.
I wrote down in my notes to give a shout out to Warrior's mullet in this match. That was a sweet look for the Warrior.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And Crush had a sweet mullet too.
I'll tell you that. I'll tell you this, and we'll say this throughout the night. Like, as crazy and as like cliche as some of those promos could be, I mean, I will take that over the overly scripted stuff we see today. Because at least it's like the energy is there, and there's definitely some emotion. They're really selling it. It might be complete gibberish on the Warriors' end, but like I would rather have that than these like trite like Vince written lines, which you know when they're there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You already know that it's been scripted, and there's something to be said that Mr. Perfect, Barry Darsow, Demolition Smash, aka Hawk and Animal, were all guys who grew up in Minnesota together.
Yeah.
Went to the same high school, I'm pretty sure, Robbinsdale High School in Minnesota.
Same with Rick Rude was in their class, wasn't?
These guys had known each other for a long, long time.
Yeah.
A lot of history in this match.
Crazy how many of those guys came from the same place. The Warriors ended up having their own entrances. You know, you gotta love Warriors' energy, man. Run into the ring, like it's just to this day, like no one else had that kind of energy going into it. It was infectious. There's no wonder he's as popular as he was.
Yeah, you know, in some way though, and Brian, don't hate me for this, but I think you may agree. Sometime around this pay-per-view, I feel like, is where the WWF started to be like, maybe this Warrior run isn't going to be what we are going to want to do. And
no, I agree. I definitely agree with that because, you know, by the next pay-per-view they did, he lost to Slaughter, and everything happened I think in the right way. Like Hogan was meant to get that title back. Warrior ended up failing anyway.
Do you think that was because of all like the backstage issues with? Because I know he got fired at one point for not showing an event or for no showing. I think
that would be SummerSlam was the event he held him up for money, I believe, in '91.
That was in '91, yeah.
Okay, but so we weren't there yet by this point, but
no, he was still going strong for at least, you know, the rest of the night.
I feel like this was a classic example of something that happens a lot today. And that's Vince McMahon committing to something and being all gung-ho, and then whenever it doesn't work out like he thinks it will, he has to double back on it.
Plus, think about the fact that, you know, he booked Warrior in the opening match. Hogan had the third, fourth match. I mean, not to spoil the ending, but it ends with the two of them. He's going back to his old standby of like, well, Hogan still gets the louder pop, and
yep.
He saw them side by side.
Either, man. He was still super popular.
Absolutely. This whole era of the WWF was completely on the back of Warrior and Hogan. They were all over everything. All of the propaganda, the marketing, all of everything. They were the most popular guys.
I'll tell you, I mean, going into the match, seeing Kurt Hennig there in his prime, he reminds me so much of what like Dolph Ziggler is now. The guy's just a bump machine. He can make anyone look great.
I wrote down no one bumps better than perfect, and then I guess you can make a tasteless cocaine joke there if you wanted to.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he did.
I don't want to.
Will you stop?
But he was a great seller too. He made everyone look like $1 million.
Oh,
he is amazing. He definitely shines.
Yeah,
for sure.
There's a super cool spot in this match that the crowd really goes crazy for, where all four of the Warriors are just attacking Mr. Perfect in this match, and the crowd is just eating it up, man.
The crowd hated him. He was a good deal.
As you know, in terms of an opener goes, this was a fantastic opener to get the crowd really into it. It wasn't really the greatest match ever, but
no, dude. I mean, I was gonna say this event really is just nostalgic value, sentiment, but it's not. It hasn't aged well by any means.
I'll tell you this, especially in this match, all 8 of these guys are huge, but they all move their asses off. Like they're all moving really fast, and yeah, you know, technically it's not as great as like a lot of the stuff you see today, but like they're really great at telling a story, and they do a lot with less than guys do now. I would argue. Like you're not seeing crazy dives to the outside because you don't need to.
No.
Definitely
finisher was the crazy finish.
Yeah.
It definitely is worthy of mentioning that Demolition Axe was eliminated first, and he didn't really see any action. I mean,
right.
Warrior comes in and hits the tackle, and like that's it.
Yeah, he was kind of on his last legs at that point, right?
Yeah, he was on his way out for sure.
But it was cool to see Crush, you know, Brian Adams this early in his career. He wasn't quite as jacked as he would later be. I mean, it's, you know, post steroids, but
I gotta say pretty hard at the spot where LOD and Demolition got DQ'd because Hawk kicked the ref.
Right.
In the stuff, which I thought was hilarious. I'm like, I don't remember that, but I enjoyed it. But that's a good way to get rid of 4 people at once.
Sure.
DQ finish, which is fine.
Gotcha.
And,
I didn't even remember that spot, but like I even made a note here, which I mentioned earlier. It's like if Hawk didn't have the face paint and the cool gear, he'd look like a typical Midwestern gym teacher with the mustache and the hair.
Definitely.
I mean, this match, just like most of the matches, it keeps the feud going. Like Brian mentioned, the Legion of Doom and the Legion of Doom Crush and Smash end up all getting disqualified, and that kind of keeps their feud going. And then you end up with, at one point, the Ultimate Warrior and Texas Tornado against Mr. Perfect 2-on-1.
Yeah.
And Mr. Perfect takes out the Texas Tornado.
Yeah, with Perfect Plex. I know at one point Bobby Heenan took a crazy bump over the guardrail, which was great.
Yeah, I don't see that too often from Bobby Heenan.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But
did anyone else notice a young Shane McMahon outside the ring as a referee?
I did, and I think the referee inside might have been a young Mike Chioda, if I'm not mistaken.
Could have been, yeah.
I think so.
It might have been, yeah, because he would have been starting at around that time.
I actually made note of all the referees I saw: Shane, Joey Morella, Earl Hebner, Mike Chioda, and Danny Davis.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, man, about Warrior. Say what you will about his moveset, but the guy could really sell and get sympathy for a comeback.
Oh, yeah. Basically, whenever he started his version of the Hulk Up routine, the fans were all in, and they were super invested into this match, man.
Yeah.
I can't let this match go by without talking about Mr. Perfect's drop kick.
Oh,
he throws drop kicks in this match. Like, if you're out there and you're just a fan of like the athletics of pro wrestling, or if you're a pro wrestler that's training to be a pro wrestler, go watch Mr. Perfect's drop kicks in this match. They are insane. They're perfect.
Kurt was amazing, for sure. So the Warrior ended up being the sole survivor of the match. I think he pinned Hennig to get that. So then we cut to Sean Mooney backstage with the $1 Million Team. And I wrote this down. It was always weird seeing Greg Valentine with the dyed jet black hair as part of Rhythm and Blues.
Boxcar, man. That's Boxcar.
Yeah.
That's what Gorilla called him.
What did they call him?
They called Greg Valentine, when he had the black hair, Boxcar for some reason.
Was that like his ring name at that point? Because he was part of Rhythm and Blues.
He was with Honky Tonk Man. He was with Rhythm and Blues, was their team.
Right.
And so there was Honky Tonk Man. He called Greg Valentine Boxcar. I don't really know. You have to ask him.
I think what Gorilla Monsoon was implying there is that a boxcar is carried behind the engine of a train.
Huh.
And therefore, Greg Valentine was just kind of hitching his wagon to the Honky Tonk Man.
I didn't think of that.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, why not?
Old Gino.
But yeah, they were there teasing their mystery partner, of course, which I wasn't totally sure if this was the first like actual appearance of the Undertaker on. Yeah, I guess this would have been his first like match. Or did he make any appearances before this one?
Okay, so as Mr. Crazy Historian Trivia Guy, so the Survivor Series happened in November on the 22nd, but Undertaker came in at a TV taping prior to Survivor Series, and he actually debuted on TV prior to Survivor Series in a couple of in I think one match that would have aired before Survivor Series.
But did he do it as the Undertaker, or was he just Mark?
Well, it's funny you mention that, Jack, because in this match he was billed on the on-screen graphic and by Howard Finkel, or it could have been Mike McGurk, whoever was announcing him, as Kane the Undertaker. Now, this is a super, like, it's not, not a lot of people know about it, or maybe they do, I don't know, but it's out there.
I saw the Superstars the week after, where they might have taped them all in one night, but they did show him as Kane the Undertaker with Brother Love.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Kame, just like that, spelled years later.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, it's cool that they had the idea for that name even back then.
Yeah, and it's pretty rad that they ended up reusing it, and also kind of funny that Bruce Pritchard named his son Kane, but that's
Yeah.
that's another kettle of fish. But
Yeah,
yeah,
the
this
Undertaker brother love pairing was a little bit odd.
I liked it. It was over the top enough for the Undertaker gimmick that they had
Yeah.
to kind of carry him in interviews. Now,
I think it prevented you from cheering for the Undertaker too, because you hate Brother Love so much.
Sure.
correct.
Yeah,
Now,
this would have been before they brought in Paul Bearer, you know.
oh yeah, well before that.
Way before Paul Bearer.
Gotcha. Speaking of which, I just saw the documentary on Paul Bearer recently on WWE Network. It was great.
I haven't watched it yet, but yeah, I'm gonna watch all that Undertaker stuff. It's
really
all
good.
good.
So,
Just real quick, Jack, if you go on that the 5-part Undertaker, the Last Ride documentary, he talks about during his debut, and they had the egg, right, for the gobbledygooker. And if you go back and read the Wrestling Observer at the time and the newsletters, there was talk that maybe instead of Hector Guerrero in that egg,
that they were going to put Mark Calloway in the suit.
Calloway was going to possibly be known as the Eggman.
Wow.
And
I think I remember hearing him talk about that. It's like, man, talk about like the ultimate dodge the bullet.
yeah, I don't think he would have lasted for 30 years if he would have been known as the Eggman, Mark Calloway.
Crazy.
both him and Chili McFreeze, 316.
Right?
Yeah.
One of Stone Cold's early names.
There's an alternate universe somewhere in which people think, whatever happened to the Eggman and Fang Frost or whatever.
Yeah.
Fang Frost. Oh God. One of the things I wrote in my notes was that DiBiase's laugh is too evil to be fake. It's so sinister.
He could nail that evil laugh, man, like with the best
To
of them.
this day, yeah, it's like, my God, I wish I could laugh like that.
The dude could maniacal laugh like nobody else. So, but the match itself was the $1 Million Team, which was Ted DiBiase, Rhythm and Blues, with the mystery partner, later to be revealed as the Undertaker, with Virgil and Jimmy Hart in their corner, versus the Dream Team, which was Dusty Rhodes, Koko B. Ware, and the Hart Foundation.
Crazy.
Yes.
Crazy amount of Hall of Famers in this match.
For
man.
sure, a lot of heavy hitters, and I gotta say, even Dusty by this point, which I know it was later in his career, he was still super popular.
Oh yeah, and you forgot to mention that the Dream Team was accompanied by Frankie the Bird.
Of course, I don't want to forget Frankie.
Yeah, but this match really was a continuation of a long Ted DiBiase versus Dusty Rhodes feud that lasted pretty much until Dusty left.
I was going to say,
right around-
you notice we didn't see the Sweet Sapphire in this match.
Sweet Sapphire took the money from $1 Million Man and left $1 Million Man at SummerSlam, which was right before this.
Oh, okay.
As well, the Hart Foundation was fresh off of their WWF Tag Team title win at SummerSlam in a big match against Demolition. This match really, it other than carrying the Undertaker and kind of getting over the Hart Foundation and Dusty and kind of continuing the Ted DiBiase versus Dusty feud, this match was all Undertaker. I mean, like, he kind of chewed up all the scenery in this one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and that's a built-in feud right there. The common man versus the obnoxious $1 Million Man. Like, it writes itself.
Koko Ware has the distinction of being the first wrestler ever to take the tombstone by the Undertaker.
And do you know who the two guys are that start out this match? The Undertaker and Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yeah, I thought that was crazy. Like they'd be headlining SummerSlam 7 years later.
7 years later, those guys are facing off for the championship at SummerSlam.
That's crazy.
I had a few things I wrote down here when they were making their entrances. For one thing, Neidhart with that pink beret, like what was going on there?
Shower cap.
Yeah. Piper on commentary Sorry, Corey.
I was going to say he wore a raspberry beret. But...
Oh, the kind you find at a secondhand store. Okay. So I like how Piper made mention of Dean Hart, which is one of the Hart siblings, had passed away, which is it's a nice shout out. I know Piper is like distantly related to the Harts. He's like a third cousin or something.
Dean Hart had passed away the night before.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and Brett went and traveled anyway. He did the whole. That's says a lot about Brett, man. And I think it's crazy as you see the Undertaker debuting. You hear Piper's commentary, which was funny to me.
Look at the size of that ham hock.
Yeah, look at the size of that. It's iconic.
Classic Piper.
I mean, honestly, the commentary really made the debut for the Undertaker. If you would have had like Lord Alfred Hayes out there or something, just going, "Oh my, look at the size of that fellow."
Yeah. Plus, you'll notice there's no bell gonging at the beginning. No. It's just that scary organ music, really simple before they made it overcomplicated.
I gotta tell you, man, there really wasn't any other character like the Undertaker at that time because it was very
very tame now in comparison to what he got. Like by the time the corporate ministry.
Oh, for sure, he would go even farther, but at the time everything was very kid friendly, very bright and colorful characters. He was just very dark and compared to everything else that was going on.
Man, his impact was huge because he stood out immediately. I'm like, whoa, who's that?
Gotcha. I always thought the Hart Foundation had a really cool look, except for like the trunks being outside of their tights. Just in terms of symmetry, that always threw me off.
That bothered you?
A little bit.
And you really have to look at the Dream Team, and you look at the Hart Foundation in pink, and then Koko's wearing pink. He's on board. And then Dusty comes out, and you can just picture Dusty being like, "No, baby, I ain't going to wear no pink tonight, baby. We ain't going to match. The Dream ain't going to wear no pink, baby."
He had standards.
Something I wrote that I did not enjoy booking wise was after the Undertaker eliminates Koko B. Ware. Why would the Undertaker ever tag out? He looks at his partners.
Yeah, he dominated everybody.
But it doesn't make any sense that he tagged out at this moment. I don't even understand how a dead man would think let me tag in my partner right now.
Is he a zombie? What's going on? I forgot Rhythm and Blues had their theme was Hunka Hunka Honky Love.
There's a reason you forgot that.
Yeah, I wish I could forget about it again.
Thanks for the reminder.
But that was first debut at WrestleMania 6 that got ruined by the Bushwhackers.
Nice.
And DDP was driving the pink Cadillac.
He sure was.
Even more useless information being thrown
in. It is kind of wild that here we are in 2020, and not only the Undertaker, but Brother Love and Shane McMahon all still in the WWE.
Still there.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But by the way, I look at Virgil and I'm thinking, if I'm Wardlow in AEW, I better make sure my career doesn't go the way of Virgil.
So here's one thing for me and for us that has to be mentioned. Greg the Hammer Valentine with this black hair look and the Rhythm and Blues. Jack, I know you're a big Zack Ryder fan, so you probably know that Zack Ryder paid an exorbitant amount of money to own a prototype of the WWF Hasbro Greg Valentine Rhythm and Blues prototype figure that was shown only in WWF magazines and Toys R Us advertisements, but never made it to market. He spent like $18,000 on this thing.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me one bit that he did that.
Of course. So, for that look, it was such a short time, basically WrestleMania to, I think by Royal Rumble 91, his hair is blonde again.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Matt Cardona is a crazy man, and God bless him, though. he's great.
So Bret the Hitman Hart pins old boxcar himself, Greg Valentine, and he's gone, and so is his hair, and probably, definitely his WWF Hasbro figure for at least another year or two.
For sure.
And, dude, how about that dive in this match? That Bret the Hitman Hart with a rare over-the-top rope dive onto the floor.
This might be, they're starting to build Bret as a big deal.
For sure.
Right,
yeah.
Or here. Since the first time, I think since WrestleMania 4, when came down to him and Bad News Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Bad News smashes the trophy. But that's when I got into Bret Hart, was just like, man, this guy, he's pretty good on his own.
Bret had a great look, man, with the sunglasses and the jackets, and he wasn't the greatest promo, but he just had a great look.
He had a good way of covering that up, though.
Yeah.
I don't think that it wasn't glaring to me that he was bad. A lot of people say that about him, but I don't know. It wasn't noticeable to me because he was so good in his turnbuckle bump here.
Yeah.
I've always loved the way the way Perfect does the turnbuckle bump. Yeah, both of those guys, man, they're so good, and it's really shown here. And it comes down to him and DiBiase. I think it's a nice little tribute to Dean.
One of the things about Taker that I noticed right away was the eye makeup they had him wear, which I don't think he did all that often, but at the time that looked that really added to his look a lot.
Yeah, I mean it was it was minor, but it made a big impact, I think.
Yeah, it made him look like he hadn't slept in about a week.
For sure. And, honestly, even though he was eliminated, he was really protected in this match because he had the count-out thing. He didn't, he still got plenty of offense in. I don't think anyone really got too much over him.
He was going after Dusty because he attacked Brother Love. So he was, protecting Brother Love. So it made sense that he would go after him.
Yep, and then it, like you said, Bret gets eliminated after he ends up tangling with DiBiase, and DiBiase rolls through the crossbody. And also in this match of note, you have to make note that Virgil holds Bret Hart, and then Bret moves, and it's Virgil messed up, and this is all leading up to not long after this when Virgil turns.
Mm-hmm.
On Ted DiBiase at the end of the DiBiase and Dusty Rhodes feud at Rumble 91.
And Roddy Piper was involved in that too, man. And his commentary on that makes it so good when Virgil turns on DiBiase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out at the end of this match when you see Bret lose to DiBiase, even my dad noticed as a kid, you could visibly see Bret say the word fuck.
Yeah.
he just goes, fuck.
Yeah. He sits right up and just says it, plain as day.
But it was a great finish, because Ted just rolled him up just out of nowhere, and it really had that surprise feel to it.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Bret could have gone on to be one of in the grand finale match with Hogan and Warrior.
Right.
That would have been cool.
And then they had a ad for it wasn't Saturday night's main event. It would have been Friday, but it was for the main event, which was going to be Warrior defending the title against DiBiase. So they kind of built in that angle for later for the grand finale match.
And Survivor Series during this time was all about just keeping the feuds going, and the fans loved it. I mean, we loved it, and it worked.
So they cut to Mean Gene backstage in the locker room shower area with the Vipers. A lot less sexy than it sounds.
I wrote Jake shows his snake to Mean Gene in the shower.
Well, I mean, I guarantee you Jake kept Damien in the showers, which I'm sure the boys must have loved that.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, now we also have to mention here with Jake the Snake, his eye is all jacked up from where he got sprayed in the eye with
arrogance
from Rick Martel.
Yeah.
Jake the Snake was coming back from this deal, and so he was in a huge feud with Rick Martel.
That's why the team is called the Visionaries.
So that's what was going on with Jake's eye, because I didn't really know what was leading up to it. It looked like he had a glass eye, but
I think it's a contact lens.
Okay, so that was an angle that they were doing. He and Martel were doing leading up to it.
And then at WrestleMania 7 they had a blindfold match. Yeah, where
okay.
They're both blind. That feud went on for a while, man.
pretty much like all of these feuds and everything here kind of sets up all the way to WrestleMania 7. It's kind of wild.
Yeah. But yeah, it was cool. So the Vipers, the team that was Jake the Snake, it was Jimmy Snuka and the Rockers. And so I gotta say, Jake was just such an excellent promo back then. He still is now, but it's nice to hear his voice when he was younger before it got as scratchy as it is now.
Yeah.
But yes. And of course, they went out and they were facing the Visionaries, which was Rick Martel, Power and Glory, which was Hercules Hernandez and Paul Roma, and the Warlord, with Slick in their corner.
That's right.
What's crazy to me is that entire team of Martel, Power and Glory, and the Warlord, not one of them is in the WWE Hall of Fame. I don't know why that stuck out to me.
I don't know. Martel was a really cool heel character back then.
He deserved, yeah. And Marty Jannetty on the other team is the only guy, which makes perfect sense to me.
Well, some of Marty's extracurriculars leave a bit to them, But,
we dealers being murdered.
I mean, let's be real. There's a good chance that the Vipers probably snorted their pay that night.
True. Oh, I guaranteed.
Yeah. Snuka killed a guy.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Shit, out of hand. You might want to lay low.
Exactly. But, I mean, I guess, did they suggest that this was the Warlord's debut match?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
No, definitely not.
Okay. Up until now, I wasn't sure whether Piper was supposed to be a heel or not, but then I remembered, like, oh yeah, he is a babyface.
He called Warlord the Walrus here.
Yes.
And I didn't get that reference as a kid, I was like, what does that mean? And,
yeah, that was a great Beatles line in there. Loved it.
Piper's great, man.
It's crazy, looking at a guy like the Warlord, you would have think the guy would have been a bigger star, because he sort of had that Austin Goldberg look to him before those guys were around.
Yeah, my dad took me to an event in February '91 at the Nassau Coliseum, and both of us, I was a kid, my dad could not get over the size of the Warlord's legs. He's like one of the most massive human beings I've ever seen. And to this day, man, like that guy is so big. I think I saw him a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's you would have think he would have been a bigger star back then, but it just didn't happen for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. There could have been the new Warlorder instead of the new World Order.
That would have been something.
That could have.
I gotta say, Martel and Roma's mullet game was just on point back then. Really,
a lot of quality mullets in 1990.
So
very underrated year.
Yeah. Paul Roma kind of reminds me a lot of Tony Nese in terms of like if I had to make a modern comparison, they look like they might have been related or something. But
I give you that.
And I did write down, look, despite everything we know about him now, in hindsight, Snuka was cool as hell in the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then his comeback here was big.
Yeah.
He came back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he had been out for a little while and he came back, but like he was such a great performer in the ring. I loved just the way he moved, and yet he was just very charismatic about him. Again, notwithstanding all his extracurriculars, what we know about him now. I'm just saying, in terms of a worker and a performer, he was fantastic.
Dude, think of the amount of partying. Jake, Superfly, the Rockers.
Oh my God.
My God. All four of them.
Brought to you by steroids, Percocet, and cocaine. Was this?
I could grow being.
It's also worth mentioning that Slick actually managed Rick Martel for a really, really short time, right after the Strikeforce split. But it didn't really last long, and I don't think Slick was still Martel's manager at this time.
Right.
But he was managing Power and Glory and the Warlord.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Right. So, what else was I saying?
For some reason, I wrote down Piper called Martel cheap ass. It was just weird. Anytime, all this profanity.
It's like you never heard anyone curse back then.
Right. It's a big deal. Now, as a 40-year-old man, I watch this and I'm offended.
Right. I liked Gorilla made a mention of an occipital protuberance.
Oh, yeah. Love that.
Which is great.
That's in the back of your head.
Classic Gorilla.
Gorilla was good at all that kind of stuff.
I gotta tell you, looking back even then, you could tell that Shawn Michaels had something special.
Yeah. I mean, you see a Hurricane Rana reversal on the Warlord by Shawn Michaels in this match? What? Like, are you kidding me?
Think about the fact that this is the night you see Bret Hart break out as a star, Shawn Michaels kind of break out as like, dude, this is a monumental night.
Those guys would just define the next decade of that company.
Even future Survivor Series events with Bret and Shawn alone, again, 7 years later.
But yeah, I mean, you saw Michaels and you were like, man, this kid has it. So
yeah, man, for sure.
Go back and watch during the match. Shawn Michaels takes a insane back body drop bump.
Yep.
Where he, oh my God, he goes so high in the air off of a back body drop. It's like, this guy is going out there just like Bret did, and he's working harder than everybody else. And you could tell that's what led them to their success later.
Absolutely. I thought Rick Martel's arrogance, I thought that was such a brilliant prop.
Yeah, super easy.
It was a real unique, like, kind of spin on, like, having mist or dust in the eyes or, like, a foreign object thing. It was a brilliant, prop.
I wonder if did they ever actually sell, like, a cologne of arrogance? They should, if they haven't.
Right.
They should, absolutely. I feel like Rick Martel is sitting on a gold mine.
Right? Like, I'm surprised.
Hopefully it doesn't smell like Sex Panther. Too many Anchorman references.
Right. It'll smell like Percocets and Drakkar Noir. I guess. But
I've never heard that sentence before.
I also wrote, like, Power and Glory must have ordered, like, the extra small trunks that night. You could practically tell what religion Hercules Hernandez is at that point. Like, his ass is hanging out the entire match. It's distracting, really.
We need small fights. Yeah, not small enough.
No.
There is one thing that you noted that not a lot of people really notice until you see Jake Roberts next to other tall people is the Warlord's a pretty big dude, and Jake Roberts is taller than the Warlord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, I feel like it's very easy to forget how tall Jake Roberts was in his prime.
Absolutely. You mentioned how, like, Piper said cheap ass, but, like, I like how he said ass and then immediately censored himself back then. He tried to, like, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Like, he caught himself mid-sentence, which was funny.
It was kind of weird that Jimmy Snuka got eliminated after another reverse crossbody whenever Bret Hart and Ted DiBiase did it better, like 15 minutes before this in the last match.
Like, very lazy with the finishes.
Yeah.
You don't care if they repeat certain, so many DQ and count out finishes, but there's no internet wrestling community to bitch about it the next day.
Very true.
Dave Meltzer probably giving it 2 stars and 3 stars.
And, here's one thing that is definitely apparent in this match. Whenever you see the signal for the DDT from Jake Roberts, the crowd knows that, like, the DDT, that finisher was so well protected back at the day.
Remember when a DDT put somebody away and you didn't just put open match with it and a super kick.
That was it. There was no question. If somebody got hit with the DDT, they were out. They were done.
Special shout out to Power and Glory, though. That Powerplex, the one that Roma used to pin Michaels, that was a great finishing move.
They were a good team, man. They didn't really get a good enough run, honestly.
No, dude.
I don't know, something didn't work out with them, but they were a cool team.
Yeah.
They really were, man. Power and Glory were fantastic. I do feel like the crowd kind of died late in this match once it got to 4-on-1, and they kind of realized that it's pretty unlikely that Jake Roberts is going to win.
That's never happened in Survivor Series. This is the first time an entire team survived with no eliminations.
I'll tell you though, I mean, but by the time it was like 4-on-1, the crowd was really getting behind Jake though. Like, you could tell.
They were. I mean, Jake ended up still rallying, and like I said, he hits the DDT on the Warlord whenever it's 4-on-1. to make it 3-on-1, and it's like, well, all right, maybe Jake has a chance. He has the DDT.
Right.
But then, of course, Rick Martel comes with the arrogance and sprays Jake Roberts. Jake gives chase with Damian and ends up counted out.
Right.
But Rick Martel was not the legal man. So
that's what I was making a note about, because it's like, okay, why didn't Martel get counted out? But then I was like, oh, he must not have been the legal man, so that's how they surviving. That's how they got out of that.
Team of the Visionaries, Martel, Herc, Roma, and the Warlord, all surviving and going on to the grand finale later in the night.
Which makes it pretty grim at this point for the Warrior, which it's kind of weird to me that they did good guys versus bad guys as like the booking of the team, because now it's Ted DiBiase and the entire Visionaries against the Warrior. That's the grand finale match. And it seems like an odd concept. They should have done like a battle royal or something. Right. I don't know.
Yeah, but I made a note here. I'm like, how Gorilla and Piper are not losing their voices by this point is beyond me, just because they're constantly screaming.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about it. It was just an observation. I'm like, man, how are they doing that this whole time?
It's so cool, though. Like that's we're 3 matches in, and the pacing is not too much. The matches aren't too short or too long.
Mm-hmm.
They tell the story they need to be told, and all these guys were kind of feuding with each other too. Like the Rockers and Power and Glory from SummerSlam, they had the opening match there, and HBK got injured, and they're still telling stories in the mid. And again, all the tag teams are utilized. I like that in every match. Good booking of everybody.
For sure.
It's everyone on.
Sure. So we go backstage where Sean Mooney is interviewing the Hulkamaniacs. And I noticed Hulk's hair was a little bit shorter than usual. I don't know why I made a note of that, but it seemed like it's usually a little bit longer than it was at the point. But it's something that stood out to me right away.
He probably had Linda cut it for him.
Probably. Blindfolded. Yeah, well, what was I going to say? But yeah, Duggan's 2x4 was wrapped in the yellow ribbons. And so Hogan was giving a shout out to the troops, and he had that line about volunteering their services to President Bush at the time, and I was like, I appreciate what they're trying to do, but it seems a little on the nose at the time,
I know. I can solve it. Send me there, brother. All right, fine.
It's like I'm gonna drop the big leg on Saddam Hussein, dude. Like no, you're not, Terry. Stop it. That's a little bit too far.
Jack, I think what it is about Hogan's hair here that makes it look shorter is he's not wearing a bandana. He's wearing just like a headband again.
Yeah, which was stuff he used to wear a lot in the early days.
Yeah, that was kind of rare, but that's the look that he took on there for a short time, and then he went
with the full bandanas and
the good old fashioned safety bandana. It's like his security blanket.
Right, and he was still wearing the Hulk Rules shirts at the time, I think, or no, he wasn't at this time. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, Hulk Rules. That was the design. Pretty much, he looks just like his Series 1 WWF Hasbro figure here with Gorilla Press Slam.
Exactly. Yeah, I had it. That was a great figure.
Yeah, one of the first, I believe the first I ever owned was Hogan and Rick Rude, which leads me to my first bit of useless trivia for this.
Go for it.
Rick Rude was originally supposed to be on the team with the Earthquake.
Yes. But
he was replaced by Haku because Rick Rude had left the WWF in the middle of a huge feud with the Big Boss Man.
Wow.
This confused the shit out of me because I was a big Rick Rude fan.
He was originally advertised for it and everything?
Yeah. Rick Rude was supposed to be on the team. Was just replaced the day of, I believe, by Haku.
And I guess he would have just went to WCW at the time. I guess maybe they.
Yeah. I don't know what happened there, why he left, but
because this is when WCW was just starting to become a thing. It was still like kind of the NWA before that.
He went on to be involved with Steamboat and Flair and all that. Good move on his part.
Yeah, he I think it was actually in '91 that he ended up going to WCW. Basically, it was a deal where they couldn't really, I don't think, come to an agreement on as far as what they wanted to do.
Sure.
With Rick Rude, but it ended up that the Big Boss Man feud with Rick Rude, it kind of ended up being inherited by Bobby Heenan, and going forward with all of his guys.
Yeah, because Heenan was managing Rude at the time, so it made sense.
Right. That same house show that my dad took me to, where we saw the Warlord, I saw Big Boss Man versus Bobby Heenan in a ball and chain match. It was like a 30-second squash. They must have done that every night too.
Yeah.
Or kind of like Warrior and Heenan in the Weasel Suit match. That was like their live show.
Oh yeah.
Was Boss Man and Heenan. Yeah, Rick Rude was just totally taken out of the whole feud, and I guess it made sense because Haku was part of the Heenan family or whatever.
So I mean, so that was the lineup. It was the Natural Disasters, which was Earthquake, John Tenta, Dino Bravo, Haku, and the Barbarian, with Jimmy Hart and Bobby Heenan in their corner, versus the Hulkamaniacs, which was Hulk Hogan, Tugboat, who would later tag with Earthquake as the Natural Disasters a couple years later. Yeah, yep. Tugboat, Fred Ottman, the Big Boss Man, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. So
that's right.
I gotta tell you, I mean, even with all the Gulf War stuff, if there was ever a time for Duggan's USA chant, that was it. Like that, you could tell that like really resonated with the crowd a little bit extra at the time.
Yeah, that's why they were later on in the night, I think, was to get people riled up again. And Hogan always got the reactions they wanted.
I made a note here. Seeing Big Boss Man and Tugboat together, they look like a jacked up version of the Village People. Yeah, the cop and the sailor,
Didn't notice that, but
all they needed was an Indian and a construction worker,
Well, Tatanka would show up later on.
Yeah, he wasn't there by this point.
Yes.
Bummer.
This again was just another case of storylines being carried on. Earthquake and Dino Bravo had been feuding with Hulk Hogan, and as well as either Tugboat or the Big Boss Man, kind of going back over the summer from whenever Earthquake attacked Hulk Hogan on the Brother Love show, and he was out for a little short time there.
I gotta tell you look at guys now like Otis, he would have fit in right with this team.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It was kind of cool that back in these days, you saw people of all different sizes, man. There were, it wasn't just a bunch of ripped dudes.
Yeah.
It was, there were tall people. There were big, giant, fat guys. There were,
Earthquake was good, though, man. He was a good heel. I thought he was, and his debut coming out of the audience that one time.
Yeah, I mean, he was a scary looking dude. Like, as a kid, you bought into it that this guy could be a threat to Hogan.
Immediately thrown into a feud with the Warrior and Hogan. When he debuted, he was good. Crazy. Yep. Did you guys know that Tugboat was supposed to go on and turn heel in this join maybe in Sergeant Slaughter's role, but WrestleMania 7 was supposed to be Hogan and Tugboat, and it was going to be Sheik Tugboat. That's what I heard
about this. Interesting. I heard about this from Pritchard.
Yeah, Something to Wrestle podcast.
Yeah. I guess I made a note here. Haku was really agile for his size.
Oh man, Haku was a fantastic athlete in the WWF for so many years.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was kind of a constant all the way through till about 92 or 93.
Yeah, and then he would later wrestle as Meng in WCW. I remember that.
Yeah, he ended up going all the way, I believe, until WCW closed, and then ended up coming back to the WWF.
Yeah, he had a brief comeback.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Rikishi.
That's right. Yeah.
And then he ripped a dude's eyeball out of his socket.
I think he was The Rock's best man at his wedding with Danny Garcia.
I believe
Haku, I believe, is now a car salesman somewhere in Florida.
So I mean, is he related to the Anawai family or the?
No.
No.
I mean, no. Yes and no. They're adopted family, but that's kind of the deal. They're all family.
Right. Yeah, I know there was a whole thing with Peter Maivia and all that. But yeah,
I didn't like the fact Boss Man was eliminated by 2 elbows.
Yeah, and Hacksaw got DQ'd for beating up Earthquake and hitting everyone with the 2x4.
Yeah, even though you have the yellow ribbon on it, man, you can't use it in the match.
I wrote down the spot with Hogan power slamming all 3 heels looked pretty goofy, even for Hogan.
Oh yeah, he just comes in and plows through everybody.
For sure. And look, I say this as the biggest Hogan mark out there, but even that was like, all right, that's a bit much.
All right, Terry, reel it in.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely kind of wild to see Hulk give the hot tag to Tugboat and him come in and clean house on Earthquake.
Yeah.
And then literally less than 6 months later in the fallout for WrestleMania 7, Tugboat goes heel in a match, 6-man tag team match with while he was teaming with the Bushwhackers to join Earthquake as the Natural Disasters. Those guys win the WWF titles too and be a pretty good team.
That heel turn, that shook me when I was a kid. That was like, oh man, Tugboat? He seemed like such a nice guy.
I gotta say, when Earthquake and Tugboat got in the ring in this match, it was definitely surreal to hear Gorilla say, "The irresistible force meets the immovable object" again.
Yeah. Oh, he loves saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
never
crowd
get tired of hearing that.
The crowd was super into it. I enjoyed watching it and everything, but if we were going to give this like an actual rating on the quality of the match, not so good. Maybe like two out of 5 or something.
Yeah.
Well, now they're moving the pacing along because they know people are getting anxious and.
Yes.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I wrote down this was actually when I first noticed Shane McMahon on the outside. I think just by this point was when I first noticed it. I didn't notice it earlier, but I think they credited him as Shane Stevens. I think was his kayfabe name because they didn't want to.
I have to mention that honestly, I feel like just on terms of physique, at the end of the match, whenever Hogan kind of just does his thing and eliminates the Barbarian is like more physically impressive and in better shape than Hulk Hogan is at this point.
Wow.
Dude, much like
and that's saying something.
Warlord and the Barbarian are highly underrated.
Dude, those guys were jacked, and I really don't see how they didn't get more of a main event kind of run with Hogan and Warrior.
The only thing I really know about the Barbarian is that his niece is a wrestler now, Lady Tapa.
Yeah.
She was in Impact for a couple years. I don't know where she's working now. I think she might be in Japan somewhere, Corey. I don't know if you know that. I believe she's still in the business.
Not sure, man. I actually did get a chance to meet the Barbarian back in December at the Bobby Eaton, I guess it was a tribute. I mean, he's not dead. In Knoxville, and Barbarian was totally cool guy. It's still pretty physically impressive at his age. The guy's fingers from throwing punches over the years are like tree limbs. They are all bent up, and oh man, his hands are pretty rough looking.
God bless him.
He went on to be a head shrinker later on in the WWF with Fatu.
That's right, head shrinker Sione.
Yeah,
okay, because I remember the head shrinkers were Samu and Fatu, but
then Samu left and he took over.
Oh, okay.
At one point.
Okay.
More
Sure.
But
I mean,
that's enough.
Yeah, I wrote down the rest of the match it's classic Hogan. It's does all the signature stuff. He even throws Heenan out of the ring for good measure. Look, classic stuff. It's a formula, but it works every time.
Yeah.
The classic post-match poses. A lot of patriotic messages from the commentary towards the troops, and Hogan's the sole survivor. And so we go to
surprise of no one.
Yeah.
Hogan survives.
We go to Mean Gene to the dinosaur egg, and I thought this was going to be the segment, but then
Macho
then
King.
he is joined by the Macho King, Randy Savage.
I forgot up to this point we hadn't seen him. Honestly, we hadn't seen him in a match.
Yeah, he didn't wrestle, but he came out for this promo segment, and it's funny because people don't talk really about the Macho King persona, but like that was my first exposure to him, just knowing that he's the Macho King. Then it's like, oh wait a minute, why are they calling him the Macho Man? When I was a little kid, but
Macho King was cool though. That was a cool little run and a cool figure he had, action figure.
Yeah. So man, I was thinking like, man, between Randy and Jimmy Hart, I can imagine the amount of clothing they've gone through over the years, like all the outfits.
Yeah,
dude, these guys were on point with their custom airbrush designs and all that.
So many.
I was lucky enough to own that hat that belonged to the Macho King for probably about 10 years. Then ended up donating it to the fundraiser for the JCC that we went to, Jack.
That's right. This was like right as he was starting to do his cowboy hat phase.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this, really this whole interview kind of was just building up to WrestleMania.
Yeah, he was making it clear that he wanted to fight Warrior for the title.
Building to the Rumble, actually, where he interfered in the Warrior Slaughter match. Which, my God, man, I hated him at that point when he interfered in that Warrior match. It was like, I was a huge Randy fan up until that point, but that we're cutting to the next pay-per-view.
Yeah,
here.
It's a classic, heel promo that he's cutting on the Warrior. I wrote down Roddy Piper made a Milli Vanilli joke with the giant egg. Timely.
Yeah.
Hey,
It's the 90s, baby. Welcome to the 90s.
That was happening at the time, so it was great.
Jack, it's true.
Yeah, blame it on the rain. All right, so match 5 is the alliance of Nikolai Volkov, Tito Santana, and the Bushwhackers. This is babyface Nikolai Volkov, very USA pro.
Oh, this match.
Versus the Mercenaries, which was Sergeant Slaughter, Boris Zukov, who I don't really...
Well, Sergeant Slaughter and a bunch of jabrones, basically.
Basically.
Slaughter and the mutants at Table 9.
Pretty much. And the Orient Express.
First thing I wrote down is a long, boring Slaughter promo.
Okay.
Oh my God, it went on forever.
Yeah.
Guys, I timed it.
Did you?
I timed it. It goes from 1 hour, 38 minutes and 30 seconds to 1 hour, 41 minutes and 50 seconds.
Oh, yeah, that's a long promo, but like...
This promo
over his music playing in the background with just the drum roll.
Which is just a drum roll. It's 3 minutes and 20 seconds of just...
I feel sorry for whoever had to do that drum roll for 3 minutes.
It's Slaughter. It's just heel Slaughter. It's the longest interview ever. Oh my God.
Yeah, like, I mean... Yeah, he was there with Boris Zukov and the Orient Express, Sato and Tanaka. I'm not sure which was which.
So Boris Zukov was Nikolai Volkov's partner in the Bolsheviks.
Right.
Which is a team that existed right up until Nikolai turned babyface, which I can't even remember how that happened.
Why? Because I know he would team up with the Sheik all the time back in the day. But, yeah, like, holy shit, man. Sergeant Slaughter heel at that point, like... It was pretty wild, some of the stuff he was saying, like especially cutting promos, like mocking the troops, which like at the time was pretty insane. I don't even know if that would fly now.
They should not have gone there in retrospect. It's like, you don't need to rub it in everyone's face. We watch wrestling.
Especially because, let's be honest, at the time, kayfabe was still like a strong thing. They never, like nowadays, they would at least put out a press release and say, hey, look, this is just part of the show. This doesn't reflect the company's. Yeah.
Slaughter was getting death threats. They had to move at WrestleMania 7 from an outdoor.
Yeah, it was wild.
I mean, pro wrestling has always kind of been a prism for reality. I mean, you see Hot Rod get all fired up with the American spirit after Slaughter's running his mouth. And everybody just wants to see Slaughter get his ass kicked, man, and see the American guys win and Slaughter lose.
No, I had made a note here. I had read that Rick Rude was supposed to be in this match, but got replaced by Boris Zukov. But based on what you guys had told me, that wasn't the case.
Not Rick. I was going to say Boris Zukov actually replaced Akeem.
Okay.
Yes.
He was supposed to be in this.
Akeem the African Dream. Oh boy.
Yeah, man. I guess he must have left the WWF at this point in time too, right? At the same time.
I want to say Bad News Brown was supposed to be in this event too, maybe.
He was in that match at SummerSlam. I think he left after SummerSlam with the whole sewer rat fiasco.
I'm pretty sure, like in the magazine or whatever, in the early photos, there was a photo with Bad News Brown as a part of one of these teams. I don't remember which one.
But I know that, see, they show the entire card in the WWF magazines like a month or two before the event, which was pretty cool.
Well, I know Zukov got pinned like immediately from Tito.
In under a minute.
Tito did like this flying body press. And I gotta say, the Orient Express, like they didn't look all that great, like physique wise. It wasn't really anything to write home about. But I loved like the martial arts moveset. I mean, being a Taekwondo guy, I immediately mark out for that kind of thing. And it's like I always think like if I was a wrestler, that's probably how I would want to move. Kind of do that way. But
and the Orient Express had a great series of matches always with the Rockers. They had a pretty good one at Rumble 91.
Yeah.
And WrestleMania 6, they had a good match.
Yeah.
Sure. I couldn't quite tell which was Sato and which was Tanaka.
Tanaka had the long hair. Sato had the short hair.
Yeah. Pat Tanaka is actually from Tampa, which is kind of funny.
Oh, there you go.
He's the one with the long hair, and then Sato, he of course was in Japan, wrestled quite a bit. I mean, he had a career outside of the WWF, but
were they American in real life, or? Tanaka was from Tampa. Did he just live in Tampa, or?
Yeah, I mean, I believe he's Asian American. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if they were native Japanese.
Sato came back in the 95 to manage Hakushi, I believe. He was known as Shinja.
Okay.
That's cool.
Another stupid little nugget.
That's correct.
The booking of this match, though, I wrote it was only 6 minutes, but the story told was Slaughter's team was eliminated immediately.
Yeah.
And then it was Slaughter against 4 dudes, and you're like, there's no way he's going to overcome that.
Yeah. It was pretty wild to see a babyface Nikolai Volkov against a heel Slaughter, Yeah.
It
was a little surreal. Definitely it would have been the other way around a few years before that.
Well, and also here's the thing. Sergeant Slaughter couldn't advance here in this match to go face Warrior and Hogan yet.
Exactly.
It wasn't. But Slaughter also couldn't lose, so that's why we saw the DQ there to get him out.
Yeah, it was protective.
To me, that was a pretty cool little surprise. The finish after you saw Volkov, Luke, and Butch all eliminated by Sergeant Slaughter one by one. Then it came down to Tito and him, and you're like, as a kid, I'm rooting for Tito, man. You're like, come on, there's no way he's gonna make it. There's no way Tito's gonna advance, and he did. Thanks to a DQ finish, so it was a cool little swerve there. I thought I always enjoyed Tito making the final cut.
Yeah.
To the grand finale.
I did think it was kind of funny that it was like Sergeant Slaughter, the anti-USA guy, and we had the USA chants against Slaughter, but the babyface team was a guy from quote unquote Tacula, Mexico, and then you got Nikolai.
They're all immigrants.
And the bushwhackers from New Zealand. None of these guys.
They're all immigrants.
Hey, it's great though. Hey, they're here. They want to be here. They're legal immigrants.
This match is what America is about.
Sure.
At least in November 1990.
It's what America is about, and that's 2-star match filler that advances Tito Santana to the grand finale. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Sure.
Followed by,
Tito ended up being the sole survivor, and I think was Joey Morella the referee for this one?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Another the late great Joey Morella, son of Gorilla Monsoon.
Of course. So after this, they have Sean Mooney backstage with DiBiase, Virgil, and the Visionaries. At first, I thought it was pre-taped because I was like, right now, I think. It looked like everyone was like showered and wearing clean ring gear, but I still then I wrote like I stand corrected when they do the close up of DiBiase because he's definitely sweating a lot. So I was thinking like, did they all like clean up, or like I thought it was pre-taped at first, but I don't know.
It could have been. It could have been either way.
Right. Because I wasn't sure that if they had like just wrestled, But they did a brilliant thing where DiBiase was like, again, they're trying to build the angle for the night after. He's like, it's like I'm paying these guys extra to rough up the Warrior before our title match. Like, genius. It's brilliant.
Everything in these days was about seamless transitions to the next show.
Exactly.
Because the pay-per-views were so few and far between. Like, this was only the 4th one for 1990.
Yeah, it made sense.
There's 4 pay-per-views, the Big 4, that's why they call them the Big 4.
So.
And the thing that made the main event the next night to differentiate between the main event and Saturday night's main event was the main event was on Friday night. Saturday night.
It was just the main event.
Yeah, but, occasionally they did it on Friday, and this was one where they did it the night after.
Right. So here we have the segment we've all been waiting for.
Oh man,
Mean Gene at the Egg, and God bless him, man. Mean Gene really had to sell this segment. You know, like they were just like, fill time. See what you can do.
The only note I wrote at this point, I'm exhausted from all these notes I took. I just wrote, "Boo this man."
Boo this man. Boo him.
That's all I wrote. Screw this whole segment.
And I had so many questions. Again, not knowing the contents, I'm like, how many weeks did they build this up? You know,
a lot of weeks.
Time, like I think 6 weeks.
Yeah, I want to say 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
It felt longer.
That's crazy for like a mascot segment.
I do remember Gorilla Monsoon at the beginning of the pay-per-view saying it could be a Brontosaurus Rex egg. You're like, that's not a thing, but okay.
It's like, no, Gene, no, it could not be that.
They were speculating for weeks. That was one of the fun things. It's like, what could be inside? Maybe some balloons or a Playboy Playmate. And you're like, what?
That's like one of those things where it's like, I think Vince had an idea and it's like, you know what, fuck it, let's put it out there. We'll figure it out later.
Much like a modern day Retribution storyline,
which is pretty much how he books the show now. So
if anyone's following recent WWE, I don't watch it, but I read about it, and that sounds like they're just flying by the seat of their pants
pretty
still.
Much.
30 years later.
Yeah.
So my theory on the gobbledygooker is that Vince wanted the San Diego chicken, but the San Diego chicken in sports was definitely over at the time.
Sure.
And Vince had the San Diego chicken, I think, 9 years later at WrestleMania, whenever it was Pete Rose, I think.
Oh, yeah. 2000, WrestleMania 2000.
Yeah.
He should have gotten into a rumble with the Philly Fanatic.
Yeah, exactly. But I literally feel like Vince was like, Patterson, get in here. Get me the San Diego chicken.
Did they not know it was in Hartford, though? Or did that not matter?
I don't think it...
Irrelevant.
Yeah.
I don't care. Get me the goddamn chicken.
Yeah, everybody knew the San Diego chicken.
That's hilarious, pal. Get me that chicken.
So yeah, clearly this is something where it's like they had an idea weeks before it, but they just had no idea how to pay it off.
And how Turkey in the Straw, I'll forever associate that song with this segment.
Which, God bless Mean Gene. He really made the best out of this segment.
I liked him running the ropes, and then you thought he was going to do the the somersault or the flip or whatever.
Yes, yeah, he completely busted his ass in the ring.
Gene Okerlund bumps for this business.
He did.
A womp bump a doo bump a womp bam boo.
Exactly.
I honestly, as soon as
he's my idol. What are you gonna do?
As soon as he comes out of the egg, the crowd just instantly shits.
Oh, just chorus of boos. Chorus of boos.
You could feel the air being deflated out of that stadium, just like, ugh.
I love how Mean Gene can actually understand what the Gooker is saying. He can translate for him, which is a nice touch.
What's with the gobbledy? You're not the gobbledygooker, are you? Where did that word come from? Gooker? Really?
I've heard of the word gobbledygook.
I know, but why would you ever use it in a name?
Yeah, it's a terrible play on words.
I think I have to clarify. This was not meant to be an ongoing superstar, was it?
No, it couldn't. The gobbledygooker was Hector Guerrero, by the way.
But didn't they do a few house show runs with the gobbledygooker?
Well, that's what I was asking. Was the gobbledygooker meant to be a wrestler or a mascot?
He was meant to be a mascot to get the crowd hyped up at shows.
Which is fine, but it's don't attach the 6-week build to it. You know what I mean?
Too much. No. That's way too much.
And honestly, after this, the gobbledygooker ended up in some promos with different wrestlers on TV and doing stupid, just the same spot that he did here, just coming in and doing flips, and that's about it.
I mean, I'm not saying there's not a place for that. You could do something like that to hype up the crowd. It's just the way they build it up really shot it in the foot right away.
And the placing of it at the end, like they meant, this is right before the grand finale. This is like the semi-main event place
right
on the card, which is like, come on.
I gotta give it to Hector.
Guys, could you imagine though if instead of a chicken suit, if they did take Hector Guerrero, who was a fantastic wrestler, by the way.
Yeah, he could really move in that suit. Like he was doing somersaults and.
Why couldn't they just bring him in as a masked like luchador? Like make him like Brontosaurus Man, the Dinosaur Man.
Sure.
Anything. El Dinosaur, the Dinosaur Lucha, like whatever.
I mean, he could move great in the suit, but it's like there's no way he could wrestle a match wearing that thing.
Why can't he be the Eggman that Mark Calloway was supposed to be?
Sure.
That was literally
El Huevo.
They literally said it in the newsletter. People thought that there was going to be an Eggman.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
What an epic waste of time. Just my God.
El hombre del huevo.
He's still trying to book
the
Hector
Guerrero's. Yeah.
Egg gimmick.
So yeah, but I wrote Mean Gene absolutely busts his ass while running the ropes. But I gotta say this: there is something just heartwarming that makes me smile about seeing Mean Gene dancing in the ring with the gobbledygooker and do-si-doing, and it's just I don't know, it just makes me smile.
Now that he's no longer with us, for sure, it's like a feel good moment. A lot of these guys.
But even before he passed away, there was just like something about like we're just having a good time.
I do like. They cut to that one kid in the crowd clapping, and he's like, "Yeah, get down!" And Roddy Piper's like, "The crowd, the kids love him." It's like,
it's like, well, they like him. Well, that's a little strong.
One kid was into it.
I'm fairly certain that Gene had probably had about 3 or 4 screwdrivers before this segment.
Oh yeah, he was on that. He was on that mimosa train long before this started. But
well, folks, I'd just like to tell you that. I'm
the mimosa tree.
Dancing with a chicken.
Yes. This is my life now.
Yeah, we're finally at the end of this.
But I mean, it seemed like they had kind of won over the crowd a little bit. I mean, and that's Gene for you. That's how great Gene was. So there was a segment backstage where Sean Mooney was interviewing the Warrior and Tito, and then you had then you had the grand finale match.
Which was only 10 minutes because that's all it needed to be at the end. At this point, it's just getting everybody out there, and you're like, there's no way Hogan, Warrior, and Tito are going to beat all these guys.
I think I had read somewhere that Tito was possibly, at some point there were rumors that he was going to be WWE champion.
92.
At some point, just at least as a backup, like he was one of those guys that they were considering.
When they did the El Matador, they, for whatever reason, thought that would have been.
Yeah.
The all of that comes from Bret Hart's book, where he says that at the time that they made him champ the very first time in '92, they had a list of like 6 guys that they were considering to be the champion, and one of them was Tito Santana.
Yeah.
Which would made sense. I mean, he was a former IC champ. He was a great guy. He was a family man. He had been reliable for the company. So
yeah, by all accounts, he was a pretty good dude. I think
he would have been like another kind of Pedro Morales for like the Hispanic community to get behind the champion, which they didn't have for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just weird that they repackaged him as El Matador. It's sort of like his Doc Hendricks moment, where it's like, no, dude, that's Tito. We know him.
Yeah, very strange, very strange. But he had a good match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 8 in the first match of the night. I mean, dude, in this grand finale, Warlord gets eliminated immediately by Tito's flying forearm, or I think it was flying burrito, as Bobby Heenan.
Nice.
And guys, here's the thing about Warlord getting taken out so early. He ate that DDT in the match before. This is Warlord selling still the effects.
Genius.
Didn't even catch that, but yeah, that totally.
Yeah, dude, he comes in and he's just like, Tito mows right over him. And yeah, dude, it's the DDT. He's like all,
Yeah, and DiBiase pinned Tito after it looks like he got his like throat like hit on the ropes and got rolled up. I don't know if that was a shoot, but like it looked convincing.
No, that was just the hot shot move where you just kind of hang the guy over the rope.
Yeah.
Or Paul Roma got taken out with the Hogan line from hell because he sold it.
That's actually Hulk Hogan's finisher in Japan, the Axe Bomber.
Oh yeah, he took out Paul Roma with the Japanese
clothesline. Hogan hit him with the old Axe Bomber, dude.
And then Martel just walked out. Like,
yeah, Martel, the smartest guy of the bunch. He's already got his pay. He has leftover turkey in the back.
Yeah, he just pieces out.
See ya.
And then Ted DiBiase eats a leg drop.
Yep, and unfortunately, he ends up losing the next night on NBC to the Warrior.
Yeah, DiBiase kind of had almost like a flare flop moment after Hogan clotheslined him in the corner at one time.
Yeah.
DiBiase was known to do that spot from time to time.
Yeah.
DiBiase was always good too, man. Solid him.
But yeah, it was mainly Hogan selling for a lot of it until Warrior got the hot tag and got the pin.
Yeah.
It's very odd. It came down to Hercules, much like earlier with Barbarian. It seemed like they were trying out different dudes as at the end of the matches, which was cool that it came down to Warrior and Hercules though, because they had kind of a history together.
Sure.
One of Warrior's first feuds, even though the matches were dog shit. But
right.
I mean, it's a cool little cap of the evening, the grand finale. I kind of wish they'd bring it back, but add some.
Then the show ends. Hogan and Warrior are the survivors, and the show goes off the air. And so there you go. That's Survivor Series of 1990.
Vince McMahon sees those two dudes side by side and realizes, I want Hogan to be the man again. I think that's what.
I think so.
Maybe, but I mean, you couldn't deny both of those guys were just money back then.
But I mean, dude, here we are 30 years later. Undertaker's still going, man. That is impressive to say, despite how they booked him and the streak and all that. It's pretty amazing, man. I never would have expected the night he debuted he'd be at the level that he's at.
Yeah. Cheers to the Taker, man, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think they're going to do I heard they're doing a final farewell at this upcoming Survivor Series.
I don't think he needs to wrestle again, honestly. I don't need to see him wrestle again. The Boneyard match was such a great ending to the character.
You think it'd be kind of like a speech and then like a Hall of Fame induction, possibly, or?
I can already tell you what I think's going to happen, fellas. It might be a little bit far-fetched, but
go for it, man. I'm interested.
I think whatever the Undertaker does with this next appearance, it's going to get interrupted by the Fiend, and we're going to see for Undertaker, because every wrestler, there's an old time-honored tradition.
Putting the young guy over on the way out.
Yeah.
Bray Wyatt on my hand right now. He has to do it for either somebody. It has to be either Bray or Roman. So who's it going to be?
We've done Roman. We've done Roman already.
He's done Roman. I would like to see the Fiend get something over on him, because that would make he's absolutely the heir apparent. To what
something I had read on the sheets, and this is just speculation or dirt sheet, was that some of Undertaker's friends are being flown in, like Savio.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they'll have people there making cameos.
I don't know if they'll make on-screen appearances, but that would be kind of cool. They ended the night with, much like they did for Flair.
Yeah.
They did that on Raw the night after. I don't know what they're gonna do, but
they'll probably do all the BSK guys that are still alive. Godfather and Henry One and
the Godwins.
Yeah.
Which will be cool, and people are kind of fantasy booking the BSK versus the Click, or I don't need that. We don't need to see that in Saudi Arabia or wherever they're gonna go.
Not in 2020.
No, dude. It's cool 25 years ago, but
exactly. Leave the memories alone, if you will.
Perfecto.
But I mean, it'll be wild to see, because for one thing, the Fiend, I think, needs some baby faces to feud with that are credible, but maybe having him get some heat on the Undertaker might allow someone to come in and challenge him.
They seem to be booking him as a babyface now on Raw.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what he is right now, but I mean, he's interesting to watch, and I like Alexa as part of the act. I gotta say, Alexa Bliss is one of the most underrated people in the entire company right now. She is fantastic.
Yeah, she's pretty consistently.
She's one of the best promos they have there. She should. I hope she has a career in acting, because I think she's a really good actress. I feel like she could have a career in that if she wants to.
Props to Bray Wyatt too, man. Husky Harris came a long way.
He's great. Yeah.
Did all right.
And from what I hear, is just like the nicest dude.
Oh yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
Tampa guy.
For sure.
Yep, a lot of Tampa dudes making it.
Cool. Well, that's it, man. This has been a fun little walk down memory lane. I would love to do this again for another older show, especially for those listening who probably don't even watch wrestling now, but probably remember this. And or certainly there are a lot of people I know who are fans of this era, who just from when they were a kid, like like your brother Brian, like
so
like
I mean,
Kevin.
yeah, and it's like just to recap is like it's not necessarily better. Quality wise, match quality wise, booking. When you go back and you watch these,
it's different.
If you weren't there growing up, man, it just sounds different.
It's different. The world was different. The crowd was different.
There's very little music being played.
Yes.
Like entrances aren't a big deal. It's not all pyro but you just get to see a lot more different.
Yeah, I mean it was a different time. It was very much.
It's
geared
very cool.
toward kids, and people bought into it, and you didn't have 40-year-old men there picking it apart.
I mean, you don't see super kick finishers and DDTs one after like that's what wrestling is now, and I like wrestling now, but I don't know, something magical about these old pay-per-views to me. They always will.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, anyways, Cory, do you have anything to promote right now? Anything you're doing with Chronocord or anything? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find us on Spotify, Chronocord, CHRONOCHORD. Instrumental music, all different genres. You can check out our stuff. We're going to be dropping some new music here very, very soon, so be on the lookout.
Cool, man. Brian, I know you're off social media right now, and I don't blame you. If I could, I would get off it too.
I mean, I'm taking an extended hiatus. I'm in parts unknown.
We're glad to have you back, of course. I know you were at Brian Connolly on Twitter.
I actually have at the Brian Connolly now on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
So we have.
I'll have to update the links. You can always follow me on Twitter at JackXConnor and my band Vertebreaker at VertebreakerFL on Twitter. Like me on Facebook, facebook.com/JackConnorMusic. You could facebook.com/VertebreakerBand for my band, and also for my other band, Mature Musical Pictures, at MatureMusicalPictures.com. Thank you guys for listening to the Phoenix Report. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for all updates, and leave a request in the comment, or if there are any other classic shows that you'd love for Brian and Cory and myself to review. It's a good time. We all have a good time. What
is happening?
They're trying to throw me off the outro here, but I love it. Yeah, it's that's the great thing about this podcast. It's pretty much about whatever we want it to be. I mean, a lot of it is music based. I focus on, but we do wrestling, we do movie reviews, a lot of different things. So as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. For Brian, for Cory, my name is Jack Connor. This has been the Phoenix Report. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.